I wonder why is everyone acknowledging George Lucas's criticism all of a sudden? What's up, everybody? Today I wanted to talk about Star Wars. So J.J. Abrams along with Kathleen Kennedy both acknowledged and talked about George Lucas's criticism of the sequel trilogy. Now we all know that there are a lot of the fans, a lot of people are not even interested in this film, and that is because of the mess that it was. This trilogy is a mess. The Last Jedi for me it pretty much destroyed Star Wars, or my enjoyment for Star Wars. But lately, the only thing that actually brings me back to Star Wars is The Mandalorian. I think the series are great. But guess what? Kathleen Kennedy is not really in charge of it. It's Jon Favreau along with Dave Filoni. So those are the guys in charge of that TV series. But Kathleen Kennedy is a pretty annoying figure when it comes to Star Wars, because we all know that she is a very successful producer, and I'm not going to take her credit away for what she has done. However, when it comes to the creative aspects of things, it is clear that she hasn't got a clue of what Star Wars is about, and we can totally see that in the new films. I believe that all the movies, the best one was probably Rogue One. I did enjoy The Force Awakens for what it was. I just did not expect that they were going to do what they did at The Last Jedi. That is where things went south for me. And now I cannot even enjoy The Force Awakens anymore, because basically what they did, they just killed all the original characters one by one, and not in a very nice way. I don't like what they did to Luke Skywalker. I'm not going to forgive them for for treating these original characters that actually created Star Wars, and it has been around for 40 years. There is just no forgiveness there. So for me, I believe that this sequel trilogy is already doomed. But now, all of a sudden, there's all this acknowledge, oh, George Lucas wasn't really happy. So I have an article here about into comics, and where he's referring to the Rolling Stone interview, the latest interview that Kathleen Kennedy talked about this whole George Lucas situation. So the Rolling Stones, Brian Hyatt, whatever his name is, asked Kennedy, thanks to Bob Iger's new book, we now know in some detail about George Lucas' dissatisfaction with The Force Awakens. What are your feelings about that? And she answered, personally, I had a relationship with George going back to all of us meeting before making the Raiders of the Lost Ark. So this has been a 35 plus years that I've known George. And I continue to be very good friends with George. But then she continues. And I think there's plenty of examples where people create something that is fundamental to who they are, where it's difficult letting go and watching that become something different. So I think initially that was difficult for George. Becoming something different. The Force Awakens was the same thing as A New Hope. What are you talking about? So she's already like contradicting herself. I don't think he anticipated how hard that would be. I mean, of course it's hard for him to let go, but the reason why he let go, it's because first and foremost, I think he was butting heads with Disney anyways. I think he was just tired. He's older, and he just wanted to enjoy his life. Plus, he got a lot of criticism on the prequel area, and I just don't know if he was prepared for more, because his Star Wars would definitely have been completely different. But you know what? That's what I wanted as a fan. That's my opinion. Let's see what she said. And JJ came into with enthusiasm and frankly reverence for Star Wars and George, and had to find what was personal for him. He had to make it his own, of course, just copying beat by beat of The Force Awakens. He's definitely making his own. I just don't understand like this. Wow. Every director who comes into a movie has to make something their own. They have to find themselves in the storytelling, and that's going to become a different point of view. And I think that's all George was reacting to. Well, I don't think that is, because that's not what Bob Iger said. I have a video about it. Bob Iger specifically said on the video that he expected that the new sequel trilogy would follow his original treatments. He always said in many interviews that Star Wars is about something new, it's about launching new technologies, and it's always going to be about new universe. So he was going to continue Luke Skywalker's story and Leia and Han, but it was going to be something different, not the very same thing. I mean, basically what we got is A New Hope again, another Death Stars, but now it's bigger. Are you kidding me? What has J.J. Abrams done that is new here? This is just crazy. And then she continues, right? And he came down, for instance, on The Mandalorian to see that what we were doing. He's worked a long time with Dave Filoni, and he's known Jon Favreau. And he was just like a little kid on set when he was watching what we were doing. So I see him get caught up in this again, and I think there is a little bit of regret that he's not on stage and directing movies and in it still, and that may filter into it as well. So there is no acknowledge of herself. This is one of the things that I don't like, you know, like there's no acknowledgement that there was a fan backlash. There's no acknowledgement that the fans were not very happy with The Last Jedi. Oh, it's because George is no longer involved and he's not really directing and it's very hard for him and blah 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 blah. And then she also goes and says, oh, there's no, it was so hard for us because there's no source material. Excuse me, the first thing that they did was to say that the EU is no longer part of canon. There's hundreds of books, hundreds of comics. What are you talking about? And she continues, right? I can't really speak on behalf of what George is feeling all the time, but I know that he's very proud of what he created. Of course, of what he created and what you destroyed. And to see people go on, enjoy this now into almost 2020 is pretty remarkable. Let's continue. So while Kennedy detailed that she believes George might harbor some regret by not directing Star Wars, she doesn't believe he could ever be lured back to work on Star Wars. I doubt it, she says, but listen, I think that it would be fantastic if he would be interested in doing that again. I mean, he would be, but if he had the freedom to do what he wanted. He's loving doing his museum, and that's a huge project, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. It's a narrative museum, so it really keeps him engaged in storytelling. I think he's loving that, and he's loving his little girl. 6-year-old daughter Everest. So he's pretty fulfilled. The only thing that annoys me about this is that there is no acknowledgement that they messed up, you know, because it seems like they can't do no wrong. And then we go back to J.J. Abrams, right? A director that I actually enjoy. I like him. I think he did a good job in most of his stuff. But, you know, I enjoyed The Force Awakens. But right now, I just, going back to what the stuff that he's saying, I just like, are you kidding me, dude? So let's see what he says here. In an interview with Rolling Stones, ahead of the release of Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, Abrams responded to Lucas' criticism by saying he only has gratitude for Lucas and his contribution to Star Wars. His contribution, I mean his creation over the years. Abrams and Lucas remain friends, and the two consulted with one another prior to production of Rise of Skywalker. So this is acknowledgement that George Lucas himself was involved with the latest film. But then he says, it is probably a complicated thing for him to decide you're going to sell this thing that you created, that was your baby, to anyone. That must be more complicated than signing a check and smiling about it, but he's being incredibly gracious. He's being super generous. And he continues, he came over, we had a meeting when he first started working on this new movie, The Rise of Skywalker, talked through a ton of different ideas and stories and heard from him what was important. And we've done nothing but try to adhere to some fundamental aspects of the story. It wasn't a difficult thing to try to do. Again, he was very gracious. So I'm only grateful. Do I wish that The Force Awakens has been his favorite movie of all time? Yes, I only wanted to do well by him. I would just say that I have nothing but profound respect for the guy, and I still truly, even more so now, working on these films, in awe of what he created. As for Lucas' criticism for The Force Awakens, lacks originality, which, come on, it is a copy for copy of The New Hope. Abrams said that he completely gets the criticism. For Abrams, The Force Awakens was a chance to return to the classic storytelling of Lucas' original Star Wars, so that the franchise could then push forward, which I was okay with it. That's the reason why I like the movie a lot. I actually thought that this is exactly what they wanted to do, but then comes The Last Jedi, that atrocity that should have never been made. I just hate that movie so much. Abrams is aware Lucas' criticism is shared by other Star Wars fans, but the director maintained that The Force Awakens was not simply nostalgic bait. Yes, it was. Just admit it, it was, and it's okay. It was okay. If they had a better story at The Last Jedi, I think it would be okay. But I think after what they did with the beloved characters in The Last Jedi, there's no turning back. There's no rescuing that. There is no forgiveness to what they did to Luke Skywalker, Leia, and Han. How are you going? Especially now that Carrie Fisher is no longer around. I'm sorry, but I believe that these movies are doomed. So the idea was to continue the story to begin with a young woman who felt like Luke Skywalker was a myth, and to tell a story that was not just history repeating itself, but a story that embraced the movies that we know as the actual history of this galaxy, so that they are still living in a place where there is good versus evil. They're still living in the shadow of what has come before, still grappling with the sins of the father and the people who have preceded them. This was not about nostalgia play. Not about nostalgia play. It felt to me like a way of saying, let's go back to Star Wars that we know so we can tell another story. Oh, well, I just don't like the story after it. But anyways, it's very weird to me that all of them are kind of acknowledging this criticism now. I think that, like I said, I'm very interested to see how are they going to end this story. It's supposed to be the end of the Skywalker saga. For me, the Skywalker saga ended with Luke Skywalker defeating the Palpatine. I know I have the prequels, I have that. I have the Mandalorian, which I really enjoy. Let's see what they're going to do here. I mean, if George Lucas really came into the set and helped them, I'll be very interested to see, but I still don't think there's a way to save it, not after The Last Jedi. But anyways, guys, drop your comments down below. Let me know what you think about all this excuses from Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams, about Star Wars. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Bye.